Hello and thank you for joining in on today's training. Heart & Solutions is a proud provider of CE-eligible trainings for our counseling community. This training may be eligible for continuing education credit hours through either the National Board for Certified Counselors, provider number 7376, or the Association of Play Therapy, provider number 21-645. To obtain CE hours for today's training, be sure to follow the steps in the description below to find and take your quiz.
All right. Good morning. I am so glad that you are all here. My name is Dr. Colleen Grote. I am the Vice President of Therapy at Heart & Solutions and lead our training program, You Need a Training. So I welcome you all here today to talk about using books interactively in play therapy. During today's training, we're going to explore how using books interactively in play therapy can be a powerful tool for helping children process their feelings and life experiences. We'll talk about how to choose the right books for different topics and mental health needs and how to use them in a way that's engaging and therapeutic. This workshop's all about giving you practical strategies that you can bring right into your session. And all of this incredible information today will be presented to you by the, I'm so excited, guys, by Brandy Guidry. And Brandy, for those of you who don't know Brandy, I just want to give you a little bit of background. Brandy was born and raised in Oklahoma. She graduated in 2015 from Southern Nazarene University with a master's degree in counseling psychology. She works for Transitions, Inc. and provides therapy to children and adults individually and as a family, with an emphasis on treating trauma and through a primarily Adlerian lens. She's an approved Oklahoma LPC supervisor and as the clinical coordination and quality manager at Transitions, Inc., oversees training for the agency and the internship program. She's a registered play therapist supervisor with a passion for play therapy. She also serves as the current president of the Oklahoma branch of the Association for Play Therapy. Brandy also strives to establish healthy and positive attachment in parent-child relationships and promotes cultural diversity and inclusion in the mental health field. She is a certified facilitator for Circle of Security, an attachment-based parenting program rostered in child parents psychotherapy, and also a certified parent coach for attachment biobehavioral catch-up. We are so incredibly lucky to have Brandy with us today to share this knowledge and creativity around using books in play therapy. I have no doubt you're going to leave with some really great ideas, and I don't want to waste any more time. So, Brandy, I'm going to hand it over to you so I can learn right along with everyone, and let's get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. I don't even have to do my next slide now. But yes, I'm Brandy Guidry. We're going to be talking about using books interactively in play therapy today. Colleen just pretty much did my whole bio, so I'll be your presenter today. I do really hope that this can be interactive. So far, I see everyone's off camera. I'm hoping that we could kind of be on so this can be conversational. Sometimes webinars can be really information heavy, and I would really love this to be more conversational for those of you who are able to accommodate that. Otherwise, I guess you can just listen to me, talk for 2 hours. I might have to stretch it if it's just me participating though, but we'll work it out. Also, I was gonna say for those attending, that I've planted a little Bulbasaur, if anyone is a fan of Pokemon. So throughout my presentation, there are some Bulbasaurs hiding within. And if you email me after the training with what slides Bulbasaur is on, he's a little tiny, dinosaur looking Pokemon character, then you will be entered into a drawing for me to send you a book of your choice that we've talked about or that's mentioned in this training. So that's a little extra thing for those participating. So I really just like this quote In ancient Greece, libraries were described as healing places for the soul. And so here's an interactive piece. If you could at least unmute, and we're a small group, so we have an opportunity to kind of, hear from each other. Who are you and what's your favorite childhood book? You can also utilize the chat, but just trying to get an idea of what your kind of book preferences are. Did you read as a kid? Do you currently use books? But who are you? And what are your favorite childhood books? I see Kendra has a raised hand.
I didn't want to be rude and just jump in. I'm Kendra Gleam. I'm a BHIS provider with Heart and Solutions. My favorite childhood book, I had a lot. I did like Harry Potter a lot. I'm trying to think of one specific book that I read a lot. I can't think of one. It was mostly just Harry Potter. I read it all the time.
Classic. Yeah. I read all the books, but I've only seen some of the movies. For me, my favorite books were there was a little bear. He's just like this little bear, and that was my absolute favorite childhood book. And then going into my adolescence, I was a big Babysitters Club fan. And then for some reason, my mom got me into V.C. Andrew books when I was a early teen, which probably should not have been reading those, but she was reading them and we connected over those books as well.
Yeah, I don't remember reading much. I never liked to read. I was more of a movies type of person, but I remember growing up reading like the Junie B. Jones, those kind of books.
Yeah, those are fun. I never read those, but I know of them.
Yeah.
I received a book for my 8th birthday. It was The Tale of Three Trees. And I still have that book and I read it to my kids.
Nice. I'll have to look that one up. I am not aware of that one.
That's excellent. And it looks like maybe somebody got lost. Hopefully they find their way back to us. Hopefully they find their way back. But I love this question. And you're in good company here, Brandy. Heart and Solutions has a book club. So a lot of the folks here could probably talk to you for a long time. But I was just thinking, Heather, some of the things you guys talked about brought me back to the days of the boxcar children as a youth, and getting into those. So yeah, we love talking books here.
Just remembered Encyclopedia Brown.
Absolutely.
That was what I read all the time.
Gotcha. Very, very cool. I mean, do you guys currently use books in your practices now with your clients? Is this something that you're already doing and you're just looking for more ideas? Or tell me a little bit about how your relationship with books and play therapy is currently.
Yeah, I think I personally use them quite a bit, and am always happy to have recommendations for multiple situations and ones to go along with things. But I'm always looking for ways to incorporate them more, and differently. So
I use them just about every day for my kids that I see, like 8 and under. We always start session with a book. That's just kind of how my sessions kind of start. And so they get familiar with the routine and they'll go pick the book, or I'll ask, who's picking the book today? Do you want me to pick the book? Do you want to pick the book? If a parent's in there, sometimes they'll have the parent pick the book and we just kind of make it a whole thing. But I just really love this idea that libraries as a whole could be described as a healing place for the soul, and how books really can transcend and promote so many different realms of healing and comfort, and learning. And they're just a great way to enhance and, shake up your play therapy work. If your kids are interested in that. Sometimes they're not. So our objectives today, we are, kind of briefly discussing literacy. Oh, hold on. sorry, my thing's moving. And what the link to play therapy is, discovering and discussing how books encourage us. We'll be defining bibliotherapy. It's more than just using a book in therapy. We'll hopefully be interactively using the books today and discussing examples to use for varying mental health conditions and symptoms. And we'll go over at least like 10 areas to consider when you're using books in play therapy and kind of compare the pros and cons as well. So literacy can really be defined in many ways. One way is using printed and written information to function in society. It's a means to achieve goals and to also develop your own knowledge and potential. Different states and different places have different levels of literacy and how well people are comprehending and reading. This is just an overall kind of generalized statement to know that when we can use print and written information to promote learning, knowledge, and goals, we can be considered literate. And so when it comes to literacy and child development, it's actually a very critical part of child development. It's an important foundation for setting kids up to do well in school, socializing with others, problem solving, making decisions, and overall becoming independent. When you can promote reading and increase literacy with children, you're really doing wonders for the foundation of their ability to not only receive information and process it, but to then kind of give it out to others as well. Ways to kind of lay a good foundation for literacy is by, talking, singing. Again, it's like our written words, verbal words, playing sound and word games, writing and drawing, and of course, reading. So all of these are ways to lay a good foundation for improving literacy in children. And then, of course, we've got our therapeutic powers of play. Books can also help to foster emotional wellness. They can also facilitate communication and certainly increase personal strength and enhance social relationships. When you're using books in parent-child work, you can really see some great gains and do some assessing with how the parent-child kind of interact when you're using books with them together. When we're fostering emotional wellness, there's some books that are very interactive or kind of promote mindfulness, and so you can really explore positive and negative emotions, counter conditioned fears, and overall manage stress. Communication wise, it can kind of tap in to the unconscious, and kids can relate to things that they see in the book. It can also be kind of directive in teaching certain lessons. And then with personal strengths, it can help with moral development depending on the content of the book. Also self-regulation. I use this phrase as, hey, are you ready to have, a calm body and a focused mind so we can get into the book and they're, ready. So as always, with most things in play therapy, really relying on our powers of play can really help us to not only increase the impact that books and play therapy can have, but just really accompany it well. And it should be the foundation of all we're doing in our play therapy sessions anyway. Everyone familiar with the powers of play? I'm not sure who's a play therapist or not here in our group. And so play therapy's role in reading improvement, this is an old study. I couldn't find a newer one, but I did find it fascinating that since the role of play therapy is to support a child, encourage a child, and kind of build their self-esteem, therapists can easily create optimal learning environments for reading improvement. So even when you are not directly teaching reading or making that a focus of your play therapy session or your treatment planning and goals, when you're reading, you are helping them build confidence. Sometimes they'll want to sit beside you and look at the words. Sometimes they'll want to read the book. I have several of my clients who do the reading themselves, and then, I help them out if they need it. But it's all kind of interconnected. Using books can really help you improve a child's reading as well, kind of indirectly. It's not your main goal, but it's something that can happen when used within your sessions. And so when we're using books in play therapy, books, they are very encouraging. They can encourage thought. They can encourage creativity. They can encourage exploration and healthy coping. Books can be easier to discuss than personal experiences sometimes because fictional characters or strangers are sometimes easier to talk about. That's the kind of like narrative externalization factor. If we can take things away from ourselves and externalize it, it can sometimes be a lot easier to make those connections and to kind of process through things or make connections of things that are maybe similar or kind of familiar for a child or anyone really. Can you guys think of any ways that books are also helpful in therapy? Not just play therapy, but it can be therapy in general. Is there anything, what other ways do you think books are helpful or encouraging?
I like to use them to kind of maybe, I don't know if normalize is the right word, but model or normalize experiences or kind of show similar experiences or situations, or provide kind of psychoeducation about situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
I was going to say, I use books in my sessions to help teach lessons. So, like, my son's favorite book is The Boy Who Cried Bigfoot. It's about lying. And so I read that to some of my younger kids who start to lie, and we talk about why it's not appropriate to lie and what happens if you keep lying, things like that. So, like, use it as lessons. Yeah, so that's why I really enjoy using books during my sessions.
A lot of my older clients actually use it as a coping skill, as a distraction, kind of a escape from reality, kind of like video games, but using books.
Absolutely.
I was just gonna say I agree, like teaches lessons and kind of helps us as a provider see things in other words and other perspectives to teach.
Absolutely. It's just, it's a good addition to kind of enhance the skills that you're already using as a play therapist. It can't replace therapy as a whole. It's not meant to be, the vessel of your therapeutic work as a whole, but it's a great addition. It can usually enhance and really help kind of promote the way that you are getting messages and supporting a client. I think you have to be mindful of what theoretical orientation you're coming from as well. If you're a more kind of traditional child-centered therapist, you might not have an opportunity to use a lot of books unless you have them in the playroom and the child, gravitates towards them on their own and then wants to read them or have you read it. So also keeping in mind what your theory kind of says about how direct or indirect you are in your work is something to take in consideration when you are considering using books in therapy as well. As an Adlerian play therapist, books are a great way to help kids explore their own lives and their life tasks. And there's a lot of storytelling that we do in Adlerian. And so it kind of can help set the stage on helping them tell a story. Go ahead, Kendra.
Yeah, I just thought of another one. So when I use books in my sessions, it also allows the kids to teach me, because sometimes I haven't, it like gives them the confidence and I'm blanking on the word, but it allows them to teach me sometimes,
Mhm.
where I haven't read the book and they're able to tell me things about this book and teach me a lesson too. So not just me teaching them, but them also teaching me and like forming that connection and bond maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of Adlerian term wise, you're really working on that egalitarian relationship. And so that's really helpful to kind of have where you're both kind of sharing responsibility of learning in the room and not just one person teaching the other. So, yeah, all great um, insights on how books can encourage us in the work that we do. So, bibliotherapy, it basically refers to the use of literature to help clients deal with psychological, social, and emotional problems. Um, it's a supportive psychotherapy um, that therapists can use by carefully selecting developmentally appropriate books to read. So I think that's a key of recognizing where your clients are developmentally so that you can choose books that are going to um, make sense to them, that aren't going to kind of bore them or be too overstimulating. And we'll talk about some of those things. If you aren't already familiar with this book, it is really great for learning about different developments. This book goes up to age 12, and it's kind of like my go-to. Um, it also gives you, for your parents, it has like little handouts in the back based on age to kind of point out where caregivers should look for developmental milestones for their child. So even if you've got like a 9-year-old, but emotionally and developmentally they're more like 7, you could give them both the 7 and 9 handouts so that parents can compare and you can educate them on kind of meeting their kids where they are. So development when using books in play therapy is just as important as developmental considerations in the work that we do in general. So goals when it comes to using bibliotherapy for children, they overall offer safety, grounding, connection, and mastery. And some goals are identification and validation of feelings, elevation of self awareness and increasing of resiliency, recognition that other children have similar problems, that they're not alone, kind of that, universalization, stimulation of discussion and play, expression of thoughts and self awareness, and discovery of possible skills and solutions. And so it's more than just reading a book. It's not just something that you do to take up some time in your session. Like it's doing so many different things in the background and can really truly be part of your treatment planning and kind of goal setting for your clients. If you recognize certain behaviors that come up when they're reading books, or if they seem connected to certain books that kind of have common themes, those are things that you can kind of use to assess for your clients throughout the work as well. It's not just about just reading a book to read a book. There's really so much that can really come from it and that, you can be attached to. When applying bibliotherapy, an analysis of the 100 most cited papers on bibliotherapy, it actually identified depression, anxiety, panic disorder, insomnia, and aphasia as key areas for bibliotherapy application. And so this is like an area that you can use to really address mental health conditions. It can really help you, again, assess and goal set and plan and aid. Someone mentioned how some of their older clients use it for distraction and coping. And so it can certainly serve in that realm. Now, there are actually different types of bibliotherapy. You've got institutional, clinical, and developmental. And so institutional bibliotherapy, that's mostly like informative literature. It's used for educating or giving information. So like if parents or patients are in a hospital and you're giving them like reading materials about an illness or possible treatments, all of that literature is kind of an institutional way to inform and give education on something. You've got clinical bibliotherapy, which is where you're using imaginative literature for the goal of change in behavior, or actually helping clients gain insight into their behavior. This is where most of us are going to fall, along with developmental bibliotherapy, which is also imaginative and informative literature used to promote a client's normal development and kind of maintain mental health. So for us, we're operating clinically and developmentally when we're using bibliotherapy. And this information comes from Terry Cotman, and she has a book about using books in play therapy. And it has a ton of books in it, and it will kind of tell you how that book relates to different conditions and how it can be helpful.
I really appreciate those distinctions, Brandy. I don't think I've ever seen those before. So,
Yeah.
And yeah, I really appreciate those distinctions and that breakdown. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we hear bibliotherapy and just think, okay, you're using a book in therapy. But there are actual types and conditions and an actual whole society and institution that you can like get certified. Like everything in this field, there's always a certification.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
even talking with, with clinicians about being intentional about the interventions they're using and developing those treatment plans and being able to further support why they're using those books and what that intentionality is. I think this just further, as gives that support there. So yeah.
Absolutely. For sure. And I like this little quote here. I might read until I feel better because again, books have been shown throughout history to kind of be almost a prescription for depression and hopelessness and all of that. So, reading has for the longest time really served as a way to kind of help lift our spirits and kind of add joy to our lives.
Absolutely.
I had a teen client once. I really like that quote as well, by the way. But I had a teen client once who I, quote unquote, prescribed a book of poetry that I knew about because she was like going through a breakup and it was her very first breakup and she needed, something to motivate her to feel better and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this book of poems is the best. You got to read it. So I really love that.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Kendra. Yeah, it can really serve in so many different ways. And that's the best part of being, a play therapist and just being a therapist in general. Like you can creatively find ways to connect with your clients and kind of help them in more than just a traditional back and forth volley of conversation. Like there's so many things out there to really kind of uniquely help our clients get through the things that they're facing. And so with bibliotherapy, the way that it kind of works as a whole, when again, it's more than just using a book and reading it. So you're actually also, when you're using books and therapy, you are helping your kind of client form an affiliation with a character or characters in the text. So we are working towards identification and projection. And that can be in a positive way. Sometimes projection is kind of deemed negatively. But when we're using books or literature in our sessions, clients can identify their own problems and goals. They might see their situation and solutions, and they might be able to more clearly see their own relationships and interactions and kind of do like comparison. And so it just kind of sets the stage again to kind of externalize or see something that's similar so that you can kind of make more sense of what's going on for yourself. Again, here's our, therapeutic powers of play at work with, abreaction, catharsis, shared emotion, and empathy. When using books, readers can follow characters through the story. They can experience their own emotions, struggles, hopes, from a safer kind of once removed position. Again, there's that externalization. It's a little, away from self, so it can be easier to kind of process. It can help work towards eventual resolutions, and it can help with actual emoting. So when you cry or get angry or disappointed or scared when you otherwise have not been able to through the realm of a book, it can really be cathartic in that sense. It also can help bring insight, issues into awareness. Readers can recognize similarities between characters and situations in themselves. It can help with increasing a reader's ability to apply ideas or lessons from the story of their own. So like when it was mentioned that, books are sometimes used for lessons, absolutely. And in play therapy, sometimes these decisions to apply ideas or lessons from the story kind of happen out of the client's conscious awareness. And so kind of keeping that in mind as well, that, sometimes these things really just kind of spontaneously occur. And they just kind of, you're taking it from what the client is giving you as well. And then we spoke already about kind of that universalization, that stories and books can help clients realize that they're not alone. Someone else has gone through this, or there's something similar, or, others share similar problems and concerns, and they found ways to deal with them. So hopefully this, individual can as well. As far as the efficacy of bibliotherapy, it's been shown to develop several capacities, including the significance of activities through like new outlooks. There's really no research roadmaps to kind of serve as guides to conduct research on like the use of bibliotherapy to enhance mental health. There's not really a lot of work that directly kind of says, oh, well, we showed this books or these types of books have increased or decreased, depressive or anxiety symptoms, but it just as a whole, it's been shown to enhance values such as autonomy, justice, that can appear closely linked with positive results in bibliotherapy. And bibliotherapy has the potential to have a positive impact in different settings. So you could use it in a more formal space, as far as just even having like a library, like we said, if you're in a hospital setting or residential setting, knowing that libraries could be, healing places for the soul, having that in that kind of setting, or just in your own playroom or in your practice, or if you have books in your lobby, like it can have positive impact in different settings. So it is story time. We are going to, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to have it read to us. Is anyone familiar with this book?
I am.
Anyone else?
No, but I'm excited.
Okay. This is one of my favorites. So,
A Tale of Two Beasts, written by Fiona Robertson. Part 1. The Strange Beast. I was walking home from my grandma's house through the deep dark woods when I spied a strange little beast. He was stuck up a tree and whinnying sadly. So I decided to rescue him. I will call you Ben, I told him, and wrapped him warmly up in my scarf and carried him safely home. I gave him a lovely bath and a gorgeous new hat and jumper and a delicious bowl of fresh nuts. I made him a beautiful house and gave him Lord Rex to play with. I took him out for lots of long walkies to keep him fit and healthy. And I showed him off to all my friends who loved him nearly as much as I did. Oh, So cute. Awesome. But for some strange reason, the little beast did not look very happy. In fact, he was looking rather hot. I hope he is not sick, I thought, and opened the window to cool him down. But then something terrible happened. He threw off his clothes, leapt out of the window, and ran away as fast as he could back to the deep dark woods. Bang! Bang! I wanted to go and look for him, but Mama had other plans. Tea time! Best time! Bedtime! I couldn't sleep. I missed the little beast and wondered if I would ever see him again. But then a small furry shadow appeared at the foot of my bed. The strange little beast had returned. He seemed quite pleased to see me. And I began to think that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't that strange after all. I wonder why he came back. A Tale of Two Beasts, Part 2, The Terrible Beast, written by Fiona Robertson. I was hanging from my favorite tree, singing happily to the birds, when I was ambushed by a terrible beast. She growled at me and tied me up and carried me off to her secret lair. She made me disgustingly clean and dressed me up in a ridiculous hat and jumper and tried to make me eat squirrel food. She kept me in a tiny box with nothing for me to do and nowhere for me to hang from. So she made me walk backwards and forwards and backwards again for no reason whatsoever. She showed me off to a herd of even wilder beasts who were just as terrible as she was. I had had enough. I made a cunning plan and put it straight into action. Free once more! I raced back to the deep dark woods before the terrible beast could catch me. It was peaceful in the deep dark woods. A bit too peaceful perhaps, and also a bit wet. In weather like this, one could do with a nice warm hat. I snuck back to retrieve it under cover of darkness. The terrible beast was waiting for me. She seemed quite pleased to see me. And I began to think that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't that terrible after all.
Okay. So what did we think? What did we see from that book?
Two very different perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kendra?
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's the two different perspectives. And I the whole time was just thinking about how you can teach that, right? About how you can help younger kids understand that just because you see something the way that you see it doesn't mean that somebody else is seeing it the same way. The whole there's your side, their side, and the truth, or whatever that saying is. Yeah, that's what I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, it's one experience, but two very different perspectives of it. And so certainly this book can help with gaining or learning or providing insight into perspective and what that means. It can also produce empathy, like for both sides. Like one, she thought she lost a pet, and the other one, he learned that, hey, it was kind of nice to, have caring, and she did care about me. And, so it can bring forth empathy and what that means as well. Boundaries, because, she didn't really ask to take them. She just took them and then kind of walked them and bathed them and fed on what she wanted and had, there was no say. And again, like point of view. And I've used this book not only with children to kind of teach, like, hey, perspective, and you saw it this way, and others can see things this way. I've used it with parent and child. So I had, the parent read it and then read it with, the child as well. And then we came together for a family session to discuss and kind of apply it to a situation that they had, to kind of understand that, hey, it's this situation, but you both saw it this way, so we can work towards resolution. And also with couples, I don't do a lot of couples work. That is not my jam. But when I have had to do it as a play therapist, I brought things like this in. And it really just, again, gives a kind of low level, like non-invasive kind of starter to discussing that, hey, there's two sides to every story. We're not saying one is right, one is wrong, but just understanding that you both experience the situation differently, and how can we have perspective, empathy, set boundaries, and a point of view. I've also used this with foster parents, because sometimes you'll have foster parents who, come in and just like, well, I'm doing all of this, and they're still not doing this. Just like, yes, you brought them in. You're now giving them a clean home. You're now giving them this food. You're giving them all these things. That's not what their world is. And so it's going to take like some adjustment. Just because you think you're doing the right thing by cleaning and feeding and giving them, their own house and space and showing them to all your friends and building community, that might not be what that child is used to, and it takes time. So with foster parents who have been kind of, a little unsure or kind of confused as to why a child isn't kind of acclimating better, I've been able to use this as well to kind of start conversation and kind of normalize that, hey, there's different ways to kind of see what you're doing. In whole, it's good, but for this child, you got to think they were ripped from their home and what they knew. So lots of ways to use this book. And with all books, you can kind of create space for it to be what you need it to be, really. But this one has a lot of possibilities. Colleen, I knew you said you were familiar. Was there any other specific way that you used it?
I think you touched on so many of them. And, just sometimes even just the aha moment for some children of, oh, somebody else may have a different perspective on things, and they read that first part or listen to that first part, right? And then like a total surprise of like, there is a different way. And so sometimes I've had kids or families like draw or write their own and like make a, from someone else's perspective with social situations, and kind of guess at what that other peer may have been experiencing. So yeah, I love this book for all of the reasons you touched on.
Absolutely. I mean, kids are just naturally developmentally kind of egocentric. So they're just like, what? There's other things besides how I see the world. What do you even mean?
As are adults sometimes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, adults too. It's just like, what? Like they never grew out. It was just like, what? Someone else could think differently? So it's just a really good way to promote conversation and discussion. So that's just one way to kind of think about interactively using a book and doing it intentionally to gain perspective in others' things. So I want us to try to do an activity. I don't know if you guys have, usually when I do this, people have access, or when I'm doing it in person, I have all of my books. So if you don't have books kind of readily with you, you can think of a book and maybe look it up on YouTube, but I want you to kind of select like a topic. I usually have like the topics for people to pick. So, and they just kind of draw it randomly. But I didn't prepare that for a webinar. I wasn't sure how to go about it because depending on how big the group is, you can't really do that. So if you will stay at a topic so we know that people aren't, doubling up, or I could assign each of you a topic, whichever, we think this is a group. So what do we think?
Will you assign one?
Okay.
I
Yes,
was just
I
gonna
will
say it
assign.
might be helpful if you assign one.
Okay. And don't worry if you don't know yet, because like that's what this webinar is about also, and helping you learn to choose. So this is just like a practice run. So Colleen, I'm just gonna give you feelings. So a feelings book, something that can help a child learn or understand feelings. And there's 4 of you, so I'll let you do communication for therapeutic power of play. And then you can just name what age group you would use it for.
Perfect.
So Kendra, maybe do the topic of lying, and then you can use that book if you want, or something else. So kind of lying and your power of play can be personal strengths.
Okay, perfect.
And Heather, how about you do friendship, or like kind of like social relationships, and your power of play can be enhancing social relationships.
And I think that is all Abby is one of our interns and she had to leave early. So,
I was like, there was someone else. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll take since there's 4 of us, I'll just take which one did I not? I think I did emotional wellness. I didn't assign yet for power of play, and I'll select the topic of capability, like feeling capable. So I will do that. So we'll take a few minutes. You've got your topics, kind of think about what age group it would go to, and how it represents your power of play. And so we'll just take like 10 or so minutes. So maybe we'll reconvene at like, 10:05. If we need more time, we can, but let's see what we come up with. And you're going to create an activity or describe the way you can interactively use the book. Okay, so for me, and keep working or reading, and if you're ready, we'll discuss or not. For me, I had capability. Sometimes kids don't feel very capable. Sometimes kids don't feel like they can do things, or they're not able to. And my power of play was emotional wellness. So the book I chose is called I Can't Draw. And it's essentially about 2 friends, Max and Eugene. Max has the glasses there. And Eugene is a really good drawer. Okay. And then like Max is like, this is the best that I can do. And so throughout the book, Eugene and Max, they love to draw together, but Max is really self-conscious about it. He's just like, I just can't draw. Like, it's just not great. Eugene is like such a good drawer. He's like, oh, look at this. Like, that's depressive. Like, look at my horse versus Eugene's horse, Like, Max is just like, man, comparison city. He's just like, I cannot do this. But Eugene is trying to help him and teach him. But, Max is distracted and he just wants to draw his way. They try to do like some parallel play and do it side by side. And Eugene's trying to give him step by step. And it's still just, not meshing out. Eugene will draw a landscape like this. And then here's Max's. He's just kind of, And so throughout the book, you could use this to explore a child's own experience with being able to feel capable or not. They can then talk about a time where they felt like they couldn't do something, but someone else they did could, and look for resolutions for that. You can definitely explore emotions. You could use feeling cards to be like, okay, what emotions does Max feel because he can't draw? And how would you feel if you were Max? And kind of pulling things out in that way. You could also work on stress management and kind of helping calm if you're getting too worked up because you just can't get it right or you're comparing yourself. And you can do in the moment like coping skills like, okay, Max is getting very frustrated. He's getting sad. He's getting worried. He's kind of upset. What can we do to help him calm down? And so just using it in that way. And then activity wise, I've used this with as young as 6, I think. And it's a cool book because it gives you like the instructions on like how to draw a cat, like step by step. And so then we drew a capable cat and then spoke about all the ways that, the kid was capable. So that's one way that I've used this book. Again, it's called I Can't Draw, and it's by Stephen Martin, illustrated by Brian Briggs. So that's my book and interventions. Questions, comments, concerns?
I just added it to my list.
Yeah,
It's a really cute book.
I'm not so secretly hoping, Brandy, that you have a list for us at the end of this training because I haven't heard of that one yet either. So.
Yeah, I immediately thought of ways I could use that with, I have a pair of sisters that I work with, and one is a really good drawer and the other one's constantly asking mom, do you like this? Do you like this? Is it perfect? And stuff like that. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect, stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need that book for those sisters.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Perfect.
I can go next. I had a hard time choosing. I was over at my bookshelf and I was like, oh, there's some books on here I haven't touched in a while. But I ended up picking The Grouchies. So I had feelings, but went with one feeling, I suppose. But loved this book. Didn't realize how loved it was, Bernie, until I opened it and realized I had gotten it from the author in 2010. So I'm going to date myself a little bit here. But really like this book. It's a nice kind of rhythmic, rhyming style cadence book. So I like it just from a regulation standpoint as well. And if I have a child who's very upset, we can read it with a lot of kind of grouchy feeling, but do some calm down, just kind of again cadence with our voices. It's got some really great kind of illustrations. These grouchies are these big storm clouds and they follow the kid around all day and nothing's going right. Just one of those days. And towards the end of the book, with some parental support and some coping skills, the child kind of decides the next day to kind of push the grouchies away, and we have kind of these more smiley faces that follow us around the next day. And so I like this one. The book itself recommends ages 4 through 8, which is probably kind of right in the group that I use it through. Sometimes with books like this too, I'll go even a little bit older and tell kids to just humor me a little bit. But intervention wise as well, I think it really lends itself to being able to do some expressive art stuff and will make our grouchies and fill in our own sort of storm clouds with what our grouchies are, and if they're in the mood, right, and able to that day, cover them up with our smiley faces and just kind of talk through those. So lots of kind of interactive stuff with this one. And it talks about stomping around. So I've had kids even get up and stomp out their grouchies during this one. So this one is well loved and well used in my office. So
awesome. I don't know that one, so I've now added that one to my cart.
I will put the title and the author in the chat. So
perfect. So cool.
And I can go next. I like that too, Colleen, that I don't know why you held up the grouchies, and it reminded me of a book we have at my house. I can't remember the title of it, but it's like the character's names, many moods or something like that. And it goes through all the moods that she has. It was written by an actress. Oh man, I'm gonna have
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes, yeah, her
Yeah.
book. Yes, okay. I'm
Yeah.
glad you knew what I was talking about, because I was like, I've read this with my son, but it's been a while, and I'm like, I also used that book once during a session to help my young 4-year-old client work through her kind of intense moods. So it made me think of that book. And now I've added the grouchies to my list. I've got a really long list of books. I also am not so secretly hoping you have a list of books at the end too, because that's why I'm taking this training, right? I want to be able to use more books, I feel like. So oh, I'm gonna like me. That's okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm gonna add these all. Awesome. Okay, well, my book, as I mentioned earlier, would be the boy who cried Bigfoot. So it's like the boy who cried wolf, but it's Bigfoot. And the book is actually in the perspective of Bigfoot. So Bigfoot talks about this kid Max, or Ben, I mean, sorry, you said Max. Ben, who has started talking about how he saw Bigfoot, and Bigfoot's like, that's weird because I've never talked to you before, right? And stuff like that. And so he's choosing not to come out when people come around, which makes Ben look like he's lying, which technically he was. He didn't actually see Bigfoot, but then Bigfoot reveals himself, and even Ben is like, oh my gosh, Bigfoot is real. And then now nobody will come see Bigfoot when he's like, no, but seriously though, Bigfoot is real. And what I like about this book is that not only is there, the words that we read as the storyteller, but there's also like character dialogue and interaction as well. So for example, one of the pages says like, Ben liked to tell stories. He liked to tell stories a lot. And on that page, it's him going, Bigfoot came right through here. And the other people who are standing there are going, I don't see Bigfoot. Like, oh, I'm starting to, think that's not real, things like that, or I don't believe you. And so the way I like to use the book is to I read through it as myself once, but then we read through it the second time where I would have the kids say the dialogue with me, so we can kind of interact in that way and role play the scenario. And then when we're done reading the book, we can talk about, well, as this character, how do you think you were feeling when Ben said these things, but you didn't see them with your eyes, right? Or, oh, as this character, how do you think Ben felt? Because there's one whole page where there's no words. It's just a picture of Ben and his dog, and Ben looks mad and the dog looks mad and we go, why do you think the dog looks mad? Or, oh, why is Ben mad that nobody believes him when he wasn't telling the truth, and things like that? Or we think Ben thought he was telling the truth? And so it just kind of starts a discussion that way, but then it also gets them kind of physically interacting with the book as well if they wanted to. And so I think one way, if I'm able to do this again, because I typically use this book for kids ages like 4 to 7, and kind of like what Colleen said, I could probably push it to, I have a 10-year-old client who I think could also benefit from this book. But I think I could push it a little farther than that. But I've had a lot of good, like, positive interaction with the age group of 4 to 7. But if I could do this book again with any of my newer clients that I get, I think I would like to actually write out questions so that way I'm able to be specific. But I also want to make sure I'm open to any questions they have too. So I don't know if I did that right, but that's how I would use that book, and it's a really cute book. It's funny.
I've added it to my cart. I don't have that one either. I have a lot of books.
It's super cute. If I had it next to me, my son will not let me take it now. It's his favorite book, so I'm like, oh, I need to buy another book so that way I have one for sessions, and then he doesn't think like, Mom, why are you taking my favorite book? So my son is 3, so he's like, whoa, you can't take that book out of my room.
My book. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kendra. Last but not least, Heather, what you got?
All right. So I have a book called A Little Emotional. I don't know if you guys can see it, but
yes,
it's
I
a book.
read that on Thursday. I used it in session Thursday. It's a great book.
Yes, I love it. So I usually use it in regards to emotions because it goes through a story of a child who has a favorite toy. He ended up losing his favorite toy and he's looking for it. He can't find it anywhere. He starts blaming his sister and verbally lashing out on her. You always get into my stuff. Why do I even have a sister? And then dad kind of steps in and says, I'm so sorry. You left it out last night and I accidentally vacuumed it and now it's broke. And so the boy has a lot of guilt. He feels bad for the way that he treated his sister. He ends up isolating into his room, and his sister comes in and actually offers him her favorite toy to play with. And so, in regards to this, we a lot of times talk about emotions, but we also talk about situations where they may have reacted in a negative way, how they made amends, how they could have reacted more appropriately, so on and so forth. And then I have a storytelling card game that I got off of Amazon. You see that? And so it comes with 6 cards and it has like add a phrase, add a location, add an item, add a character, add an emotion, add a problem. So they can go through and they can choose aspects that they want to put into their story. And so they can, if you wanted to make it about like social relations, you could, kind of make the story into that way of like, oh, well, you were at a zoo with your sister and you felt disgusted because there was tea and you don't like tea and you got angry. And yeah, that's kind of how I do some of my sessions.
I love that. What's the name of those cards? I am so about different card decks. Like, I want those in my life.
It's Open the Joy Creative Storytelling Card Game. And then for some of my younger clients who it would be hard to put a story together, I also have Open the Joy Act Out Emotions. So it's like a emotional charades. So they get an action or an animal and then as well as a feeling. So it'll be like a disgruntled lion and they have to act that out for me.
Love that. I have some of their products. Okay, I see the charades. Is it the charades card game?
That is that one I was just talking about, but the storytelling card game is a different one.
Okay, I'll have to find it. I see the charades, but I have a lot of their card decks already, so I will find those because I like the idea of having them even just randomly select one of those and then they have to add a problem to the story and then we can talk about resolving it or having to change the situation or scenario, and how would that make it different? So I definitely want to get those cards. So I'm so glad that you shared that with us, Heather. You guys have all given great things, and I got new resources. You guys are making me spend money. You guys are probably spending money. Like, that's the problem with these kinds of trainings and being play therapists. Like, we will buy and spend because we need all the things, right? Of course.
Absolutely. Well, and Heather, I'm so glad you shared that too, because when we're thinking about like bibliotherapy and using these books, right? Like leading that into then them being able to create their own story, right? And Brandy, thinking back to what you said earlier about just like even going back to capable, right? And you sharing the book that you shared earlier, right? And giving them the tools to then be able to create that story and use these same techniques and these same skills in such a way, like it's so powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys. That was this is how this activity is supposed to go. I like a smaller group because we can, all share in that manner. If we had like 20, 50 people, we wouldn't be able to do that. And so I really appreciate your engagement into that activity. And so another thing to kind of keep in mind, because we did speak about like the developmental aspect of like using books across like age groups. And so they can serve different functions depending on the age group that you're working with. When you're looking at using books with the 3 to 7 group, you want to try to choose books with smaller amounts of words on the page. You want to kind of try to stick to topics that you know the child will like. Indirective interventions include just having the child choose a book. Like I said, I start with this age group every session with a book, and they just know. It's like, before we do anything, what do? We read a book. And I've got like the shelf, and they go right to it, and they'll pick, or I'll pick, or the caregiver will pick. And then directive, of course, is, if you are choosing a specific book on a topic or area concern to share. And you can process books with this age easily using toys, games, or art, or in any of the ways that we kind of discussed just now. With the ages 8 to 12 group, they're a little more kind of developmentally able to increase like abstract thinking and kind of have more cognitive ability to kind of pick apart and examine books and topics. And so in this age range, usually if you're using books, you're being a little more intentional with your book selection, kind of like it was mentioned of assigning this book of poems because, a client was going through something. And so interventions with this age group could be to like read the book and then like retell it, or doing like mutual storytelling with your clients, retelling the story with new characters or situations, and then kind of drawing or creating worksheets based upon this. This age group and the teens, they're all about feeling capable and knowing that they know stuff. So if you say, hey, let's create a worksheet so I can use this with other kids, they're going to be all over it a lot of times, depending on the kid. And that can be a good way to use books and help them kind of create something for you to use in the future as well. And then teens, they're kind of used more independently. So you would kind of prescribe a sign, like was mentioned. A lot of times teens might select a book that they can identify with. You might read books together, like a little book club with your teen clients. And with them, it really helps to kind of connect with characters to gain insight into their own lives. So intervention wise, using characters and storylines to kind of challenge their own negative or illogical thoughts. And you can use a lot of expressive arts or even sand tray to accompany book reading with teens and across all, ages, honestly, with the expressive arts and sand tray. Some specific bibliotherapy activities. I've got the link here, and I'll send the slides over so you guys can have these slides just so you have the information. And I've got like the different books and stuff we're going to go over, so I can send these afterwards. So one activity that I like to do, I've done the invitation to play and freeze frames a lot. So invitation to play is you choose a character from a book, and then you kind of design a simple invitation to invite that character to the child's house. And so you kind of include like a picture or a sentence about what they're going to do during the visit. You can use information about likes and dislikes from the book. This one is really good for like the enhancing social relationships of therapeutic powers of play to kind of gauge and assess, would they feel comfortable inviting someone over? Do they feel like this person would want to come to their house? And kind of gives you ways to kind of assess and explore what their perception of self and their role in personal and social relationships are. So it's a cute way to kind of interact with the book. With Picture This, you can give children images of settings, characters, and events from the book. This one usually takes more planning, so I don't do this one a lot because I'm not a planner. So then you kind of ask the child to create their own story using the images that you've provided for them. So you can add in new images not found in the text or in the book, such as feelings or situations. It's kind of like those storytelling cards that Heather was talking about, to have them incorporated into the story. And so that's a fun way to also use books in therapy. I like Through the Keyhole. I'm just not much of a drawer. I don't do as much expressive arts unless like the client brings it on. But this is where you choose a scene from the book and you have the child imagine that they're peeping through a keyhole to kind of catch a glimpse of that scene. And then the child can kind of draw or sketch what they see. And you can have them draw or sketch the scene based off of different emotions. You could be like, okay, you're looking through this keyhole, but you see it in a sad way. What would be different of the scene? And so it really helps with exploration of emotions there and perspective. And freeze frames, a child can choose a character from the book and then kind of like act it out. So it's kind of like charades, and then you kind of call freeze, and then you as the therapist kind of can guess which character is being acted out, and you kind of can repeat it throughout to show different characters with different emotions. So you might be like, okay, well, let's show Ben acting this way instead, or Bigfoot was acting this way, or the Grouchies are now this way, and you have to kind of guess and act it out like charades. So these are just a few ways to actively and interactively create activities to accompany books. And I've got the link there. I got it from scottishbooktrust.com. And so again, I'll get these slides sent out so you guys can have access to these interventions and that resource. Any questions, comments on any of those?
Oh, I was muted, Brady, but I was just saying I really like the creativity and thinking even about the invitation to play. I was working with a child not too long ago and had seen some social interactions and in which a lot of their peers were engaging with them and hey, and I commented of, something about, seeing all of their friends and they were like, oh, those aren't my friends. They just say hi to me. Right. And so even thinking about this invitation to play of, being able to explore, would they send that invitation? What would that language be of, well, they won't come or they're not gonna come or, or those kids maybe with some of that indiscriminate attachment who want to invite every character in the book or books you haven't read with them and things like that. So just how much these kind of simple sounding activities really can bring out some bigger picture concerns.
Absolutely. There's so much assessing that you can do. Like if they're only inviting the bully in the book, what's their reason for doing so? Is it to kind of help them to not be a bully anymore? Or is that who they think are friends? Because that's the kind of people, because certain ages are like, oh, well, my friend, he's being mean to me. Well, if he's being mean to you, he's probably not your friend. So, It really can give a lot of insight in assessing opportunity.
Absolutely.
Use books with kids and adults. We've kind of been talking about like, hey, I could use it with a little older. It says 4 to 8, but I could use it with 10 or 12 or use it with an adult. Using books is not necessarily limited, especially children's books, to children. So don't hesitate to kind of offer reading lists to adults or even present adults with children books, not only for work with their kids, but for themselves. Like I think sometimes we have to in the hustle and bustle of being an adult, kind of take it back to basics. And it's not to patronize or to make it seem like they can't grasp something, so you got to treat them like a child. But sometimes we just need something simple and fun and refreshing to kind of gain new perspectives. So remembering that children's books and books in therapy doesn't have to be limited to just children.
Making an adult book list is Colleen's niche. She is so good at that.
That's another 2-hour training, Kendra.
Oh, well, let me know about that one, and I will join it. I'm not in Iowa, but I'm going to have to, I see I might have some new connects, and we might have to get together.
Join us once a month on Fridays, Brandy, for our book club.
Okay, yes, I definitely want some more information on that. So now we're going to discuss like some books for specific topics. So this is kind of like the list that you guys would want. It's not like a formal list, but I could probably create one. I had one a long time ago, but these are some books for like specific topics. If you're looking for books to kind of introduce play therapy to kids, these are some of my favorites. There's so many out there. These are ones that I tend to use the most. So all the books that are here, I'm not saying they're the go-to or the best book for these categories or topics, but these are the ones that I have used the most and that I actually have and have used. So Miss Piper's Playroom, which is actually behind me. If you don't know Lynn Louise Wonders, I'm a big fan. She is incredible. I love all her Miss Piper books. And it's funny because kids, like when they'll see, you know, she's like a person of color and curly hair and glasses, and they're just like, "Are you Miss Piper?" And I'm just like, yes and no. So it's really cute. And I love all the books. And Lynn Louise Wonders, she has Miss Piper's Playroom, which is like an introduction to the playroom and play therapy process. But then she has like categories. She has one for grief and autism and ADHD and just all these different categories of her helping them in the playroom. And so it's a really great series. And so I've just got like some little quotes from each one, but this is her, that one's probably one of my favorites. It's a little more wordy than I would like sometimes. So I kind of have to skip through because, you know, attention span and age of kids and development. But overall, it's wonderful. I also like Some Bunny to Talk To. It's about these rabbits. It's so cute. And it kind of, you know, it tells you what like a therapist is. So this little quote, a therapist is a person whose job it is to help bunnies like you solve problems. They don't have all the answers, but they are really good at helping you figure out what a good answer for you, what a good answer may be for you. And so it's super cute. And it's got little animals. This is a classic, a child's first book about play therapy. It's also kind of long and wordy, so you gotta kind of pick and choose. I like the part about explaining confidentiality. That's what I mostly use it for. I feel like it has a really good explanation that kids can understand on what confidentiality means. So that's what I mostly use that one for. It's all in black and white pictures, and it's got good information, but it's kind of long to kind of sit through in one setting. But it's a good resource for explaining what play therapy is. And then this one is a newer one. If you're not familiar with Carmen Jimenez Pride, she does a lot of work with IFS and like EMDR and play therapy. And this, A Visit to the Playroom, this is introducing going to counseling at a school. So it's like she's a school counselor in this book. So, and she explains what play therapy is. So these are ones that I use mostly for introducing play therapy. Is there something that you guys specifically use that's like not here?
I put it in the chat, Brandy. I use A Terrible Thing Happened a lot. I don't know if with the raccoon. I had a puppet raccoon forever and ever, and some kids would latch onto that for a long time.
Yeah.
Therapy, but I use that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think I have that here in the in a different category.
Perfect. Yep.
I have A Terrible Thing Happened on my list. I need to buy it.
It's a must-have. certainly really good because it talks about just you don't know what happened, just something happened, and that something could be whatever matches to the kid. Depression, sadness, kind of overall feelings. These are some of my favorites. In My Heart, it's just really cute and kind of folds out, and the heart like changes color and shape. And as the writing, I just feel it's just so whimsical and beautiful. It's like some days my heart feels as heavy as an elephant. There's a dark cloud over my head and tears fall like rain. This is when my heart is sad. And so I also love Color Monster for feelings. But In My Heart is a similar in that regard. Drake's Quest for Life. It's one of probably the only books that I have seen where they actually kind of directly talk about like a suicidal ideation. Like Drake sadly wished he wasn't alive, so he went somewhere he could survive. And so a lot of times you don't find like a direct thing like this character, he was like over it. And so it really is a good book to explore those topics for our younger kids who do have ideation because it's there and there's not a lot of resources to cover that. So I really like this one for depression and suicidal ideation in kids. What If I Know My Feelings? It's a cute book. It just has different. I like this little worry monster. He goes with another what if monster of the same kind of book. And then What's Inside Your Backpack is really good. It can be used for like older kids. I would say this is a good book for that 8 to 12 range rather than younger kids because it shows her journey going to school and it has the imagery of like her dad yelling at mom and kind of like showing like that trauma of like domestic violence. And so it's just, this concept of we all have books in our backpacks that can weigh us down. They might come from feelings or fears or tough situations. And it's a really good way to explore different emotions or things that people carry that you don't know. So those are some of my go-tos for that. For anxiety and worry, Hey Warrior, it does an excellent job of kind of explaining what anxiety is and like the physiological components of it. It's a little wordy for younger kids, but I've used this with adolescents and teens and even adults to define anxiety. A lot of times people say they're anxious, but they don't really know what anxiety means. And so there's a good illustration. It's surrounded around this, the little character is the amygdala. And so it's like shaped like an almond, and they sell the amygdala character. And you can use that and have, the client name their own amygdala and kind of use that to kind of externalize and help them make decisions and recognize if they're in freeze, flight, or fight mode. My Worried Worrier is really cute. It has like this little purple worrier, and like throughout the day, it just grows and grows, and then it like essentially takes up the whole page. And so it just kind of talks about the journey and kind of progression and growth of worry if we, don't intervene. Worry is a cute little, this is definitely for like littles. It's only got like a few words, colorful, just short way to address worry with like littles. And same with Wimberly, Worried. It's like her first day at kindergarten maybe, and she's got like her little animal and she's just scared, and then she finds another friend who has like the same thing, and then they connect. So but for those kids that are kind of just generally worried about everything, this is a good one to use. Self-esteem, confidence, worthiness. I like rabbitiness for this. It's actually in Tammy Von Hollander did a kind of bibliotherapy toolbox book for clinicians, and she has this in the grief category. And so that kind of goes to show that books can really be what you want to make it based off of your perspective of it, because in this book it just really talks about all the things that Rabbit like to do Like he did unrabbity things. And so throughout the book, they're kind of reminiscing about Rabbit and remembering all these things he did. But I like it to kind of highlight, like, hey, there's not one way to be a rabbit. There's not a one way to be you. And so it's really good for that. Marvelous Me is really good for, promoting, like, hey, I'm my own kind of superhero and whatnot. Be Who You Are, Todd Parr. He's got really colorful, fun books. And it's just really fun. It's like, be young, be old, be little, be, big, like just be who you are. And so it just really promotes inclusivity and differences, and just the idea that everyone needs to be loved. So love yourself. Tomorrow I'll Be Brave is a really beautiful book. Um, it makes me cry. Sometimes I just got to be careful, depending on what my mood is, if I'm going to use that book, because it can be really powerful. I would say this is one that you can really use with older kids or adults to really kind of allow yourself to take a step back and remember that, hey, you're not going to be your best every day. And that there's always another day. So tomorrow I'll be all the things I tried to be today. And if I wasn't one of them, I know that's okay. And so it's a really beautiful book. I really love that one. The illustrations are beautiful, the words are beautiful. It's a really great way to just kind of give yourself some grace and a break. So I really, really love that one. Body image, Chubby Bunny. I literally did not know that Chubby Bunny was like an actual game. And then someone told me, and I was like, what? I just thought it was Chubby Bunny because of the book. So she's like a chubby girl. And I love how they have the different body types. Like her mom is thin, or no, her mom is like big and tall, and her grandma's like really thin and small. And like she's just somewhere in between. And they just really, celebrate inclusivity, because sometimes kids are chubby, sometimes adults are chubby, and to kind of embrace that, and being chubby isn't a bad thing, and maybe you can help other people understand that too. This is what her grandma tells her. Eva, the Diva Girl, speaks powerful affirmations. This is a really good one, especially for children of color, with colorism, with pressures of whether to wear your natural hair or not. So Eva doesn't like that her hair isn't long and straight. Her belly poking out doesn't make her feel great. Eva doesn't like her chubby legs or feet. She wishes she could hide as she walks down the street. And so it really kind of, puts into perspective, especially all the pressure that kids have these days with social media and what it is to kind of define what beauty is. So like, it's a really good one, especially for kids of color who might not feel like they are fitting in because they aren't meeting what maybe normal beauty standards are. I Like Me, really cute. It's a older book, but it's oldie but a goodie. Like she's like all the confidence, this little piggy. Like she is just going for it. She's like, I have a best friend, and that best friend is me. Like she is all about herself. You can't tell her anything. And she just goes for it and lives her life. And then Everybody Has a Body is really good because it, helps to dispel things about like ableism and how like, you don't want to discriminate. Like everyone has a body, they're all different. And they just, take us through the world in different ways. If you're going through your thoughts, cognitions, mindfulness, and I know I'm kind of like breezing through them, but I just want to make sure because we're coming to a close, and then we can discuss or email me or whatnot. But thoughts, cognitions, mindfulness, catching thoughts, really beautiful book. This one is on YouTube, I believe, for sure. And it's a really kind of CBT kind of book about kind of noticing and changing your thought perspective. So it's like one day she's got this black balloon, these dark thoughts just following her, and one day she decides just to say hello and greet them, and choose positive thoughts instead. Of course, it's a big deal. This is wordy for older kids. Like it's too long for little ones. You might have to like breeze through. Like all of these kind of Boys Town books, they like got really good lessons and messages, but they're super long. You got to know your clients and if you can get through them or not. But it's really good about changing perspective. Like, why can't I, think of things like that? And it's like, you can, it just takes practice. So really about thought stopping and really changing the way that you think. I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness, just very chill, there's a couple of books like this in this series. But this one is good for mindfulness. And I Breathe is really fun. They've got different animals and different kind of like yoga poses and breathing exercises to do with each animal. Um, so the excerpt I chose, Alice feels alert like a bouncy bunny. All her tiredness is hopped away, and she takes 3 short sniffs and breathes out slowly. And so this is really good to actively in session engage in mindfulness and different breathing techniques. Boundaries, body safety. I am not a chair. Super cute. We've got this giraffe and he's shaped this way, and just everybody is sitting on him. No one takes the time to see that he's not a chair. Like, people are just like coming and sitting on him, and he's not saying anything either. And so it's really a cute way to kind of discuss boundaries and speaking up for yourself. Don't let the pigeon drive the bus. I usually read this in session or in the webinar, but for time's sake, and it's a smaller group, but I love using this book for boundaries because honestly, this pigeon is doing the most to try to get his way. And you can kind of speak to that, like, it's kind of like grooming behaviors. He's like, hey, I'll give you $5. Hey, like, I'm sure your mom would let me. Hey, like, and it's really good conversation that you could use as a starter. Like, it's fun and silly, but you can easily kind of turn it into like, hey, even for like parents, so that they don't recognize what grooming is, like, these are things that could lead up to it. And so it's about saying no and knowing that you can say no. So I really like that one. Your Body Belongs to You is kind of a classic, kind of straightforward book about your body, and it's an older book, but a goodie. And then Please Tell, I've used a lot. I work at a trauma and abuse center, and so we get a lot of sexual abuse, and this one has been one that has really helped kids tell their own story. And then I've used it many times for them to write and draw their own version of it based off of their experiences. So it's a really good, if you don't have it and you work with that population, definitely a go-to. Behaviors, anger, needing attention, all the Joy Berry books, classic. She has all the categories for everything. I like this one a lot because it kind of helps, with that, 3 to 8 age and doing negative things for attention and helping realize that they can get attention in different ways. Sammy the Elephant and Mr. Camel. This is a book specifically for helping kids overcome bedwetting. It's kind of long. It can be lengthy, so I kind of just tell the general gist of the story because just reading it in one setting for the population that usually needs this book is kind of difficult, especially in a session. But it's about like this little elephant, and Mr. Camel is helping him because like he can't hold his water like everyone else. And like he's trying and he's walking, it's spilling all over the place. And so it's a good way to kind of externalize bedwetting. It's like, can't you control that bucket yet? So it's just using that analogy. Sometimes I'm Bombaloo is really fun. It's just like, if you see the cover, it's like she kind of has a mask. So it's just like she's normal, and then all of a sudden she's Bombaloo. And so it's a good conversation to kind of understand, like, yes, your anger is kind of separate. You still have to be accountable for your actions, though, because you don't want to say, oh, it wasn't me, it was Bombaloo. So it helps have conversation about accountability as well. And Best Behavior is a cute little book. It's really good for preschoolers. It just talks about like being patient and brushing your teeth and your hair. And so it's just kind of like normal behavioral things. Family changes. If you aren't familiar with Slumberkins, be careful if you are getting into it because they've got so many things. But I really like this one. And each of the Slumberkin books, they have like little mantras at the end to kind of chant and repeat, and they're really cute. It's Not Your Fault. Cocoa Bear is a good one for divorce. Zachary's New Home. He's a little kitty cat. He gets adopted by these swans. So it kind of talks about the foster care system. It has like the court and the judge in it. So it's really good for, it's older, but it still can kind of ease and normalize the experience that kids are going through. And then Family Change. This is a book for kids whose parents, their rights are getting terminated. And it's a really good kind of straightforward book about those kinds of changes and what's to come. Inclusion, Circle of Love. It's got a lot of Native American and LGBTQ plus content, anti-racist baby. It just really talks about how like racism isn't, you know, innately, you know, it's like it's bred, it's not born. And so you can start from the beginning. Dolls and Trucks Are for Everyone, just kind of breaks the stigmas of which toys are for boys and which ones are for girls. And then They, She, He, Easy as ABC is a really cute book for pronoun usage. If you needed to break it down, they go through the alphabet of different names and kind of go through the pronouns. And I thought I had a trauma section, but I don't, because I have a couple of books. I will add those. But a terrible thing happened when a parent or when someone you loves hurt you is a really good one as well. So I'll get those. Try to be really diverse with your books. You want to show different ethnicities, cultures, abilities, conditions. So these are just some in my collection that kind of represent diversity. You want to make sure to like read all books before using them in therapy. You don't want to get a book like, oh, that looks really cute, and then like use it, and then it ends up having a terrible result because you couldn't prep a client for something that might be really hurtful or, you know, activating or triggering for them, or something that just really wasn't appropriate, or like maybe parents aren't really on board with pronoun stuff and you're just reading that because, and so you want to be mindful of books and their use before just deciding to use them. This is just a little fun, like, you know, be mindful because these look like innocent books and they mostly are, but their topics and their things, it's just like, they can be kind of sketchy. So this kind of just reminds us to read a book before we use it. So considerations, you want to mostly kind of look at why are you using it? What's the context for use? What format is it? What population and developmental level is it for? What's the subject matter, text and illustrations? Consider values, diversity, cultural considerations. And so then I kind of just break down each of those. So again, you'll get these slides, but context for use, like why? Are you doing it for education? Are you doing it for healing or behavior change? Is it just for fun? Sometimes I just read a book that's fun because it sets the tone for the stage. Like every time you use a book, it doesn't have to be intentionally to address a topic or situation. Format, is it written? Are you just listening? Are you watching it on YouTube? Is it a chapter book? Are you leading or is a client leading? Who is this for? Is it for certain situations where they live or different ages? What's their comprehension level? So all the things when it comes to like development, age appropriate information. Is it appropriate to use this book about sexually based topics or content with someone yet? And would their parents agree? So just keeping all that in mind. That kind of rolls in the same with like subject matter. Is it kind of abstract? Are you directly addressing needs and issues? Be mindful with like neurodivergence of text and illustrations. Sometimes it can be overwhelming or overstimulating. Making sure the language and pictures are appropriate. Are they attention grabbing? Is it going to keep a child's attention? And then kind of like we've already spoke on, addressing values, and diversity, making sure that a family is, on board. Most of the time when you're working with people, they kind of know where you stand. So if it's someone that you maybe, would question if you could use the book or not, you probably wouldn't have that client anyway, because you kind of, have it kind of laid out of the type of therapist you are, but you want to kind of keep those things in mind as well. I remember one time I was using the game of life and we were playing, and you get to the married spot and I'm like, okay, do you want to marry a boy or marry a girl? And it was a boy client. He's like, I can't marry a boy. And I was like, in this game you can. But then I was like, oh, I don't know what their family thinks on that. This was earlier when I was like a candidate. And so I was like, oh, so then I was just transparent with the parent after session and said, hey, this came up. I didn't know what your values were. And we just kind of cleared it up and it was fine, but just something to keep in mind. And multicultural literature, again, being diverse, trying not to attribute one person or piece of literature as a representation of an entire culture, obviously. Some pros and cons. It can support good mental health when you use bibliotherapy, can be versatile, usually kind of cost effective, especially if you use YouTube videos. You can see some mild to moderate symptoms be helped. You can use it in individual and group, and it's overall considered appropriate for most people. Cons, sometimes you can't find things for certain topics. Sometimes a client doesn't want to read or they're not able to read. Sometimes clients can project their own motives to kind of justify or reinforce some inappropriate or negative perceptions. Obviously, as a therapist, you can use books in conjunction to the services you provide, but you're not certified. There is an international federation for bibliopoetry therapy, and there's actual set official standards for practice. So a certification if you really wanted to go down that road. So don't say you're a bibliotherapist without the proper training and credentials. So just a couple more quotes. Library is a hospital for the mind. We read to know that we are not alone. And then here's my contact information. I know I kind of breezed through the last part, but I'm available for questions after. I can always do a repeat or follow up. But here's my email. If you happen to catch the Bulbasaurs on the slides, or I'll be sending them and you find it, I'll do a random drawing for a book. But I really appreciate your time and your engagement, and I hope that you kind of gain some valuable insight on how to further use books in your work.
Thanks so much, Brandy.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandy. This was wonderful. Brandy, this was such valuable information. Your slides were beautiful. They were engaging. I just appreciate all of the books. So many that I haven't heard of either. I don't know if I am thankful or should be frustrated that my list is incredibly long now. But Brandy, like I said, everyone is at the Play Therapy Institute. She is in Oklahoma, but she offers credentialing for those that are pursuing their registered play therapy credentials. She is an RPT-S. For those that are in the world of play therapy, you know how hard it can be to find an RPT-S and get high quality supervision. So Brandy offers remote supervision for those that may be closer to her geographically. They offer a supervision, I don't know if I want to call it a package, Brandy, but are able to help get providers taken care of on that roadmap to becoming an RPT and work through supervision and trainings and all of the things that can be really overwhelming to sort through. So don't hesitate to reach out to Brandy. We will have all of her contact information and ways to do that in our show notes. So again, I thank you so much. I would have you here all day if I could. For those that all day yes, absolutely, and we would have you back any time. It has been an absolute pleasure. For those that are new or not new to UNITA training, don't forget to go to our website. We have some great trainings coming up. Brandy, I know you mentioned your fondness of Lynn Louise Wonders. I will shamelessly plug that she is headed to Iowa this summer to do a 2-day in-person training in Cedar Rapids on the journey of play therapy. So for anybody that can get here, make sure you don't miss her. So lots of great stuff coming up there. But as always, thank you all for being here. It was nice to have such great conversations today. And don't forget that you need a training.
Thank you for joining in on today's training. We look forward to having you join us again. Heart and Solutions is proud to provide CE-eligible trainings for our counseling community. This training may be eligible for continuing education credit hours through either the National Board for Certified Counselors, provider number 7376, or the Association of Play Therapy, provider number 21-645. To obtain CE hours for today's training, be sure to follow the steps in the description below.